Welcome to Anthology Training. In this video, we will go over some of the aspects of the Café or touchscreen module. Specifically, we're going to talk about the POS Favorites. And you can see on the screen right now, this is my Café touchscreen sized cash register, and I have set up a POS Favorites already. Just to give you an example, you can see that I've got my drinks grouping, and then underneath drinks I have coffee, and then underneath my coffee I have further choices for hot and iced, but then I have my individual inventory items here as well. So to set up or use the POS Favorites, you do need to have the POS Favorites or the Café or touchscreen module. If you go to Help and then About Anthology, you'll see what version you are. And in my case, I do have the Café module enabled, so it's showing up in this list here. Note that the Café module is an add-on module. It's an add-on for stores that want that functionality. It's not part of the default install. If you should have the Café module and it's not showing up here, contact support@anthology.com and they can help get that going for you. I do want to note that you should be using at least version 9.468 or higher. If you created POS Favorites in the early version of the system prior to 9.468, the method we use for storing that data has changed, so you may need to create a brand new POS Favorites if you created yours at a previous version. So to create a new POS Favorites, if we go to the Master Files menu, you'll see down here is POS Favorites. And I've already got a couple of ones I set up previously, but I'll go ahead and do F for New. And let's just give this whatever name works best for us. We'll call this Left Reg. And I'll just F10 save that. So now I've created the name, I can start adding items to it. I do find it is easier if you start out ahead of time making a little bit of a sketch of notes showing what some of your typical groupings are going to be. So in my case, I decided that I would have two top-level groups of drinks and food. And then underneath, say, the drinks grouping, I have a sub-grouping for coffee. And then I also have my iced and hot options as well. Not necessary to create this ahead of time, but I do find it's a little faster if you create some of the basic groupings first and then come into the POS Favorites and start building those out. So I'll do that with mine. I'm going to first add the drinks and the food groupings, or masters. Those are the brown buttons you were, or rather green buttons you were seeing on my screen. So the first thing to do is F8 New Master, and we'll give that name. So we'll do drinks first. I'll do F10 Save. Now notice down here, the focus has jumped to the name field down here. That's that pink color. But then it says belongs to top. In this case, my drinks is going to be a top level grouping, so I want to leave this set to belongs to top. I'll do enter line, and you'll see more of how that works in a moment. I'll do another F8 New Master, and let's make this one for food. Same thing. I also want my food group to be one of the top levels, so I'll leave that as is. And now if I want to add subgroupings, they're still called masters, but they're a grouping underneath. So for my drinks, I can add maybe hot and iced subgroups. So again, I'll do F8 New Master, and I'll put in the name for hot. And then I will do save. And here, I want to change this. I want this to belong to my drinks grouping, and then enter line. And then F10 to save every so often. So you'll see that my hot item or group is now showing up. It is belonging to the drinks group. And let's go ahead and add a couple more. Let's do the iced. And there again, I want iced to be part of my drinks menu. And let's do maybe a soup and sandwich group for the food area. So here too, I will change that belongs to. It is better to start out, create your top level items first, and then your secondary layer, and then your third layer, and so forth. Let's add one more for sandwiches. Enter line and F10 save. So those are my grouping levels. Now I want to concentrate on adding the inventory items, the actual SKUs that I'll use to sell in that transaction. So let's concentrate on the sandwich items first. So to create the members, those were the brown buttons you saw. Those are the individual inventory items underneath those groupings. So to create a new member or add members to a grouping, I'll go to the Members tab. And I do want to make sure that this master grouping is set to the one that I plan on working on. So let's work on the sandwiches group. So I'll set that to be the master. And now I can do F5 new member. And if I know the SKU or the ISBN of the item that I'm going to sell, I can go ahead and just key it in manually. And in this case, I do. We'll add the chicken sandwich first. Now when I tab over, if I've gotten my SKU correct, it will find it in the inventory and display that name. So it found the chicken sandwich item. I'll just enter line. That adds it up into the grid. And I'm still in new member mode. It still is ready for me to add the next item. So let's do the ham sandwich item. There again, put in the name. If it's correct, it'll find it, and then enter line. And then just F10 save when you're done adding the new members to that grouping. Let's go ahead and also add items to the hot drinks area. So here again, I'll go back to the Members tab. I'll make sure that the master is set to the particular level or grouping that I want to work on. So we'll do hot in this case. I'll do another F5 new member, and my coffee drinks happen to have real simple names. So my small coffee is just SCOFF. I'll tab over. There's my small coffee item and enter line. So I'll real quickly get my other coffee sizes in. Oops. Let's do, and a large coffee. I do have a couple other coffee ones, but at the moment I don't recall their exact SKU. That's okay. Using the assistant button down here, I'll bring up the inventory assistant window, which may look a little different than the one you would normally see from the cash register. In this case, I do have my touch screen setting turned on, so it's showing me those large buttons sized for a touch screen. So the other item I have was, I believe, an Americano coffee. I'll just do a quick search. There it is. The SKU happened to be ACOFF, but I'll just go ahead and F12 select it. Make sure it is set to be part of the master we want, and we can say enter line. So I'll do another save. So if I go back to my Masters tab, there's the groupings, and then I have the different members for each one of those groupings, and I can do a quick preview by doing F6. And here's all the grouping levels that I've set so far. So let me just move this around so we can see better. So underneath my drinks grouping, I have the hot and the iced groups, and then under hot, there's my coffee sizes. And if I go back to the food and sandwiches, there's the sandwich items I added. Now this is just a simple preview. This is not exactly how it's going to look in the cash register. We're just giving you a little bit more screen space to see it better. Now that I've created that POS Favorites, I can close this POS Favorites window. And now I need to select it for my cash register. Now it is a per workstation setting, so you find that under Master Files and then Stations, and then the Details tab. So you could create a POS Favorites for maybe the two different cafe stations you have. Maybe one is more where the drinks are handled, and the other is maybe more closer to the kitchen and the sandwich food area. So you could set up different POS Favorites per workstation, just depending on your preference. So when we go to Master Files Stations and the Details tab for the station that I'm working on, you'll see that there is a touch screen device checkbox and a cafe cash register checkbox. These two items will not show until you have the cafe module enabled. And again, if you don't see cafe in your help and then about window, contact support and they'll help you add that function. I do need to have at the very least cafe cash register checked. That's what enables the POS Favorites buttons to show up in my cash register screen. Touch screen device is another one that you can use. It's just an extra option that is meant for folks that do have the touch screen monitor. What that does is it makes certain forms like new inventory record, new customer, new vendor, inventory assistant, it makes those more sized for the large buttons that touchscreens often use. So as long as I have those two options checked, I can now go to the POS Favorites drop down and I'll pick the one I just created called Left Reg and F10 to save. Now because this is kind of a global setting, I do need to briefly just close out of Anthology and then I can get right back in. And now when I open my cash register, I will have that new layout for POS Favorites. So there's my drinks and food group. Under drinks, there's my hot group, and then there's my items. Now, I can control the sequence or the order of these buttons too. Maybe I want my Americano to be one of the top items, and then maybe the small, medium, and large. So to modify that, if I just go back to Master Files, POS Favorites, pick the one I wanted to edit, Left Reg, and now if I go to the Order tab, I can choose what group of items I want to modify. So in this case, I want to modify the order of the coffee that's in the hot grouping. So I do want to set items to show to hot down here. And then there's my 4 different coffee sizes. So if I wanted to put the Americano first, if I hold down my left mouse button, do a single left click and keep holding that mouse button down, I can drag that Americano item up and down in the list, and you'll see it shows that change. Once I've got it in the sequence I want it, if I just let go of my mouse button, that will leave that item in that position, and I can go through and resequence the other guys if I need to as well. And now just F10 save. And again, just make sure the cash register screen is closed out, and now that I've closed the cash register, I'll just reopen the program briefly. And we'll see that change has now taken effect where I resequenced the items showing up in the hot grouping. That's about it for POS Favorites. There are a couple other related aspects to the Café module in general. There is the ability to pre-print a receipt so that you can have your customers sign the tip amount they wish to give. You can also add a tip. And then there is also an option for a kitchen printer. If you go to Master File Stations to the Printing tab, you'll see down in the bottom right-hand corner I have Cafe Printing as a checkbox. And how this works is I'll select the department, in this case Cafe for me, and I'll specify what printer this is going to need to go to. I have a printer, a receipt printer basically in my kitchen area, so that during the time I'm ringing that sale up, before I finalize that transaction, the system will prompt me and say, do you want to print to the kitchen receipt printer, and maybe for my ham sandwich and my coffee item. So that's just another little added function for the Café module in general. There are more details on the customer zone. If you go to the Anthology website, to the customer zone, and then go to Documents and White Papers, you'll see below, about halfway down, there is a group for special topics. And under special topics, you'll see there's a couple of documents on Café about the tips and the tips overview in general. And then there's another detail, another document about just using the POS Favorites, which is essentially what we just went over. That should get you going on the POS Favorites. If you do have any questions, just contact support@anthology.com. Let them know what question you have, and they will help you out.